In the studio here live. We've been talking while we were on break. John brought up the case in Boston about the girl that's been sick, and one hospital's fighting with the other hospital over the type care and so forth, and the parents have been drug into it. John, I'll go ahead and let you explain it. I know it's on the news, and probably a lot of people heard it, but it's still something we should discuss.
Hang on, sorry. The parents, this little girl has a disease called mitochondrial disease, where the mitochondria in your cells produce energy, and that's what gives your body the energy to grow and to run and to fight disease. Now, by the way, her older sister also has mitochondrial disease. She's been treated at Tufts University, one of the finest universities in the country. She's been treated by one of the world or the country's leading experts in mitochondrial disease. She gets the flu. Her respiratory doctor, who used to be at Tufts, had left and gone to Boston General. So they call and they say, hey, he's over there. Take her to Boston General to get this cold treated. So they take her over there. She never gets to see that doctor. She sees apparently the ER docs at Boston General. They determine that she has what they call somatoform disease, which is a mental disease. They say this is all imagined and that she doesn't have mitochondrial disease. They call DCS. DCS comes in and takes the child away from the parents and claims that they have subjected her to unnecessary tests and unnecessary medications. Now, everything these parents have done has been recommended by some of the leading experts in mitochondrial disease. They didn't ask for any of it. So they keep her. She has been locked away from these parents for over a year now. They took her off all of her medicines. They put her under psychiatric care. When she went in, she was playing soccer, she was running, she was active. She is now paralyzed from the waist down. The parents have been allowed to see her for 1 hour a week on Friday and have a 20-minute supervised phone call on Monday. Both visits are supervised. The judge put a gag order in place and told the parents they weren't allowed to speak about it. The father came forward. DCS is now demanding that he be prosecuted under contempt of court laws for violating the gag order. He says, look, my daughter's dying. They've taken her off her medicines. We have done nothing wrong. We did nothing that medical experts didn't recommend. And because DCS is involved, this week, the judge has ordered that she be placed in foster care. Now, these parents have done nothing abusive to this child in any way, shape, or form. This is an argument over whether she has a disease or not.
And this is one judge's opinion.
One judge.
And this is one hospital fighting
arguing
against
with another
hospital.
And Tufts University, that's one of the best hospitals in the country.
You know, it's amazing to me how this girl has two parents. They've raised this child. They've got another child with the same problem.
Disease.
You know, they want to be involved in this child. They have been banned from this child for a year.
Right.
Banned for a year.
Now, my argument, and Franklin doesn't probably appreciate this is one of the results of an expanding government. This is the result of Eric Holder telling state attorney generals, do what you think is right. This is power, and power begets more power. The more power you give government, the more power they want.
How can they put a ban on this father speaking out?
Well, frankly, I would have to ask that. If a judge makes a ruling and he feels confident it's a good ruling, in a case like this, why would he put a gag order in place?
There are a very few limited number of cases where a gag order can be maintained, and I would submit in this case it is not one of those appropriate cases.
But my point is, why would he have done it in the first place?
He probably doesn't want to be criticized.
He probably was embarrassed for what he was doing.
But I'm not defending him. I'm telling you, I think you're right in this particular case.
Well, I will say in this case as well, once this father has gone public, apparently parents and families are coming out of the woodwork and saying DCS in Boston has a history of this type of activity. But again, this is when you put just like Obamacare, when you put your hands in the decision-making ability of a government agency, this is what you get.
I don't understand that link.
People who give up essential liberty to secure people who give up essential freedom to secure liberty deserve neither freedom nor liberty, Benjamin Franklin.
Well, with what I do, I see a lot of cases where the government's involvement to protect children is entirely appropriate and necessary for the children's welfare.
No one's arguing that
You've
case.
got two loving parents that have raised this
I'm
child and
not
done
supporting
everything
this.
right.
This is an example where the system clearly isn't working.
This is an example of a disagreement on what's in the best interest, correct?
It appears to be that.
Which is exactly what we argued just a few minutes ago on the businesses and the gay rights. I said an attorney, your attorney general told state attorney generals that they could decide what was right and what was wrong. And I argued for the rule of law. The rule of law here ought to say you don't take children away except in the most extreme incidents. But this is a bunch of bureaucrats going, we don't agree that she's got this disease, so we're just going to take her away. And what's worse, if you took her away, Franklin, and you locked her in a mental ward and you took her off all her medicines, and over the course of a year you steadily watched her health deteriorate to the point where she's now paralyzed from the waist down, how big of an idiot
John,
would you have to be to not go, maybe I was wrong?
You and I are in agreement on this case.
But my point is, the bigger issue here is this is the government control. This is controlling our lives, and this is what it leads to.
What's going on with Volkswagen and the union? Is the union going to stir something up?
Stir something up?
The people that claim they believed in the freedom of the employees to vote are now punishing the people that didn't vote the way they wanted them to.
Well,
I mean,
there's a member of the management council for Volkswagen who has indicated that they may not bring this new line to that because of this decision.
Right. Let me put that.
Hold on. Let me just
I just want to put the context in place.
Okay. That's the labor representative on the board there.
Right. The union guy.
Well, you say union, but it's not like it's the UAW. It's the German counterpart.
But it's the union,
and it's something that their company fully supports.
It's the union.
There's no question about that. And
did the people vote?
Yes, they did, John.
Do their vote not matter?
It certainly.
I mean, if this guy believes in democracy and if he believes in the freedom of people to chart their own course, why would he do this?
Well, usually, John, you're interested in protecting the rights of the businesses, and the businesses in this case wanted something, and you've spent your time trying to deny them.
Frankly, the people voted. Guess what? I think that the people would have been much better served not to have elected Barack Obama. But when the election was over, I didn't go up and storm the gates of the Capitol and go, we're not going to accept this. I went, hey, I lost. Wish I hadn't. Think it's a bad decision. But it is. It is what it is. You liberals don't do that. When you win, you say you were justified. When you lose, you go, by God, I was cheated.
What I expect will happen is that at some point down the road, there'll be another attempt at an election. That's what I expect.
What I expect is the National Labor Relations Board that your president has been stacking through recess appointments that the Supreme Court has ruled unconstitutional might actually set this one aside because they've not had any problem embarrassing themselves to this point with their partisanship.
We're still awaiting that decision.
By the stacked NLRB.
No,
Let's take
by
a
the
call.
Supreme Court.
Go ahead, caller.
I'm an ex-union worker, and I love it. I'm retired, been retired probably 12, 14 years, and I love my union.
What union are you involved with?
United Auto Workers.
Where are you from?
Georgia.
Georgia?
Well, the UAW this year is expected to spend not UAW, the union's AFL-CIO, $300 million of your former dues money supporting Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi and Democrats on average, because about 97% of it goes to Democrats. Were you comfortable with all those donations over the years?
Yeah.
Well, why didn't you just give the money yourself? Because some of your people you work side by side with weren't comfortable. Why should they be forced to give money to a candidate they don't support?
What are you talking about? Support who?
Those individuals all got the benefits of
whether they wanted it or not, Franklin.
Were you happy with all your coworkers, or were you unhappy with some of them?
I like the security of the union and my benefits and everything and my retirement. At least I do have a retirement.
Well, actually, your pension fund with the UAW is in serious trouble because they've mismanaged it over the years.
We'll see what happens, buddy. As long as we keep buying these foreign cars, we will be in port. It ain't just the UAW. It's the whole United States is messed up.
Well, your former union members in Detroit, how secure are their jobs?
I have no clue.
They're out of a job. They lost them because the union mismanaged the whole system.
I like my check coming every month, and I worked hard for it for 30 years.
I agree. You earned what you got, but the point is the unions, you probably got out at about the right time.
What age did you retire?
About 51.
51.
I started at 18 years old. I'm not a retired person. I still do things a little bit, not much.
But you're drawing a retirement at
I'm
51.
65 years old, and I've been retired for probably 14 years.
Well, congratulations. You beat the system.
I hate to see these young people have to work the rest of their day till they can't walk no more. That's my problem. I think everybody needs a way out.
Okay.
Keep them all working, but there needs to be some air light at the tunnel.
Do you think that if we could retire everyone around 50, they'd make more jobs for other people?
You can't even get anybody to work today. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Oh, I heard a union worker, I've said this before, sat there and explained to me he hated the people he worked around. He said that they were just terrible. They were lazy.
Let me ask Franklin a question. This goes to this point. You say that they're going to have another election maybe in a year, and you're probably right about that.
No, I mean they'll go through the process that they went through before.
Why would you have one in a year?
Well,
why wouldn't you
Well,
just
wait a
set
minute.
it up?
I want to take that question in the reverse. If you vote a union in, let's say you vote a union in 1962, and in 2002, every employee who was present at that vote is now retired or dead. Do you think that the current employees should be bound by a vote that was held by employees who don't even work there?
There's a process for a decertification.
Actually, not a decertification.
Yeah, there is.
Why should there not be recertification? The unions violently oppose recertification laws. We'd like to see you have to revote let's revote every 10 years. But the unions are against a revote every 10 years. Why is that, Franklin?
What's the difference?
They're not against
John?
the
Well, do you think
every
that
time they vote.
If you've got enough employees who don't want it there, then that will happen.
Franklin, no, they don't require recertification
No,
votes.
there's decertification.
Do you know how hard that is when the union is threatening people?
I don't know what threats you're talking
Franklin,
about.
all right, let's talk about
I didn't see any of the old style types of threats.
Well, maybe
that
you
you're
don't
talking
read the
about
news because in Philadelphia just
I'm
last
talking
week,
about the VW race.
In Philadelphia just last week, the black Democrat attorney or U.S. attorney up there just indicted the local unions for thug squads where they went out and actually they burned an Amish church down because they weren't using union shop. They went to one contractor, threatened him to the point where he gave the contract up.
Okay,
And
so it sounds like they're being held accountable and punished. Is
They
that right?
are, but my point is they were doing it. The unions were threatening and intimidating people to work for the
I
union.
didn't see the only threats I saw in the VW case were coming from the anti.
Well, Franklin, let me give you an idea of a threat then. If I'm against the union and you're for the union and the company, which was odd in this case, get together and they say, we're going to let the pro-union guys come in and meet with the employees anytime they want, and we're going to exclude the anti-union people. Does that seem fair to you?
Well, John,
Does that seem fair?
Aren't you the person who thinks that the business owner ought to be able to control that?
Franklin, I'm asking you.
I'm
if that's
asking
fair.
you.
Look, I'm not arguing. I don't think they ought to keep either of them out. I think they ought to have equal access. Once again, Franklin, I'm willing to actually say a decision equal on both sides. You only take a decision when it favors your liberal belief.
No, I'm talking about what you think the employer should
Well,
do.
Franklin, who should
My
decide who
views-
votes?
Who should decide?
Should
who-
Republicans get to go through all the voter rolls and decide who votes and who doesn't vote? Would that be fair?
in a union election?
No. In a normal, let's say I go through the polls or through the rolls up here at Bradley County, and I pick out everybody I think ought to vote. Would that be fair?
Well, it'd only be like 3 people. If you
Well,
were
Franklin,
doing it.
that's what the unions got to do. They got to decide who voted and who didn't vote down at the UEW. So at every step of the way, they rigged the vote. They got a 2-week window to vote instead of a normal 5-week window. They got to choose which employees voted and which employees didn't vote. They got exclusive access to politic in the plant when the anti-union people didn't, and they still lost. And they're such sore losers after all the cheating. They still lost, and yet they still won't give the people what they voted for.
I guarantee you Obama's going to come in on Volkswagen. I think he's going to come in and try to make something happen with this.
Well, that would be what Saul Alinsky taught him to do.
Pretty amazing to me. Is wine in the grocery stores going to be on the ballot in August?
No,
What's the problem?
there's a time limit. it will be eventually be on the ballot, but it
It
won't be in August.
It won't be in August. I
It'll be
think
2
I think the
years.
legislation will pass to make it
Yes,
permissible.
It's going to pass, but it has a 2-year delay. It has to come.
all it does is give you the ability to vote in your local
Right.
community, whether you want it or not.
Right.
And that
so-
can't happen this quick.
It won't happen this same election cycle. It'll be the next time.
And then even after it's passed, I think there's a year delay. There's a very ordered sequence as how they can put them in place.
Why does it take so long?
I don't know.
Are you for it or against?
Oh, I'm for it.
I'm pretty much free market capitalism. I understand people not wanting it. My biggest problem is you get all these interests. The liquor stores don't want it because they don't want the competition, and I feel bad for them. But
Right. You know, when alcohol came to Cleveland, it's not done anything to harm us, I don't think. Let's take a call. Go ahead, caller.
This is for John.
Okay, John, this one's for you. I got a feeling
John,
it's the
you're a
red here.
city boy, right?
no, ma'am, honey. The city came out around where we live, but we were a mile outside the limits when we built the house.
Well, how come you asked Franklin if chickens chase their tail?
Well, because I mixed up my cat chasing its tail and my chicken and an egg analogy, and I combined them.
Tail.
I know that, and I knew that when I said it, but I just mixed the cat chasing its tail and the chicken and the egg argument.
Okay, you messed up.
I did.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Rick.
I appreciate it.
Anyway, it's going to be 5 years before we'll have an opportunity to.
No, it's about 2.
About 2.
But then I think it's another year before it's completely implemented.
So 3.
Right.
3.
Yeah.
I guess for 3 more years, those stores down in Chattanooga still get those taxes, don't they?
So it would
Pretty
seem.
much.
So it would seem. Yeah.
Anyway, food stamps. Well, no, I don't want to talk about that right now. The Fed is now letting the banks do business with pot stores in Colorado, John.
Well, I find it amazing that we have an administration that will vilify cigarette smoking like they're doing, run a legal business out of business, and then turn right back around and push marijuana smoking, which is actually more carcinogenic than cigarette smoking.
It was amazing to me when I read the article about they had all this money coming in, but they had nowhere to put it, and they were creating crime. But now they're saying just turn your head, banks. Let them go ahead and do business with you. Well, the banks, the rules and regulations are scaring the banks to death. As a matter of fact, they started bringing ATM machines in, and now they're getting
Welfare.
They've got
withdrawing
19
welfare
confirmed-
money in marijuana stores and buying marijuana. So taxpayers are paying for people's marijuana. You okay with that, Franklin?
I don't know how that works exactly.
Because they have ATM machines and they have cards now. Well, they've put the ATM machines actually in the dispensaries, and we now have records that people are withdrawing their welfare money on these ATMs in the pot dispensaries. Now, the assumption is if you're in the pot dispensary.
Yes, John, you should not be spending those types of benefits on marijuana, although if the ATM was outside the grocery store, I don't know how you would police that any differently.
Well, no, the point is not policing it. The point is that it's happening. Once you legalized it, we've now got people who supposedly need this help, and they're using the money we give them that we hope they were using to get job preparedness done, and they're using it to get stoned and lay around all day.
You and I agree that that's not something.
Well, this administration shouldn't be pushing a
the
drug that makes
not
people
pushing it,
Franklin,
John.
oh my gosh, where are you at?
John,
This administration has argued
John,
for the legalization of marijuana
it
from
has
the start.
No, it has not.
Oh, gosh.
It has not.
No. What it has said is that amongst all the various problems from a criminal justice perspective that we have, marijuana is not at the top of that list.
Then, Franklin, why are they trying to almost criminalize tobacco smoking? I mean, it's to the point now where they're
I haven't seen any evidence that they're trying to criminalize tobacco smoking.
That's the last thing they could do. They've done almost everything but. So at one hand, they're making tobacco smoking the ultimate evil in our society, and on the other hand, they're going, pot's no big deal. Go ahead, smoke some pot.
Well, John, what we have done, although smoking tobacco has been legal is we've spent a lot of time and effort on the part of the government trying to discourage people from doing it.
But now we're
It's the
encouraging
same
marijuana
thing.
smoke.
No, we're not
Yes,
encouraging.
we are,
I have not
Franklin.
seen who has encouraged people to smoke marijuana
Well, the state of Colorado has.
because they made it legal.
Yes.
Well, but that's not the same as encouraging it.
Oh my gosh.
Because you act like it
all right,
wasn't
let me ask you a
happening in the
question,
background.
Franklin. Are you telling me without a doubt, unequivocally, that legalizing marijuana will not lead to an increase in marijuana usage?
No, it's going to lead to an increase in taxes for the states to have to spend.
Well, that's true too.
How did
No
we
more-
how did we achieve
more
a
giveaways.
dramatic decrease in smoking even though it's legal?
Then why would we be going
no,
down
no,
this road?
how do we do that?
We put pressure on the culture.
Okay. Well,
but we're going in the opposite direction with marijuana, and it's actually more carcinogenic than tobacco.
Well, see, the problem is that it ignores the facts about how many people were smoking marijuana anyway.
Franklin, when you
This is not an
legalize
issue
it,
about-
more
it's
and
not
more
an issue about promoting
Franklin,
it.
when you legalize it, more and more people will do it, and you know it.
Well, why would smoking rates be falling then, John?
Because, Franklin, we actually explained to
Okay.
people that it was dangerous.
Then why can't we do that with marijuana?
Well, we're not. That's actually my argument. Why aren't we telling people how dangerous marijuana? Why do we have an administration that's you got a president that walks up to the bully pulpit and goes, I smoked pot when I was young, not that big a deal. You're telling me that's not an encouragement? The president of the United
That's
States?
not what he said.
Yes,
John.
it is.
No, it's not.
What did he say?
He acknowledged that he had done it in his youth. He said,
And that it didn't hurt anything.
He said, I don't think it's necessarily a good idea. I don't do it anymore.
And I wouldn't want my kids
But
to
it's
do
Of
not
course
a big.
not.
But it's
But that
not a
doesn't.
big deal.
That's a different thing from being illegal.
Franklin, the same administration is out here telling people that cigarette smoking
John,
is horrible.
I don't know how you get through the day with your head stuck down in the sand
Franklin,
all the time.
The government required cigarette
What?
companies to put pictures
Yes.
of disfigured people
and
on
guess
their
what?
product.
I'm
At
okay.
the administration does picks and chooses winners and losers.
The administration didn't decide the vote in Colorado, John.
Here, read this. Here's a little headline.
They did decide not to
a
enforce
state
federal.
who, by
they
the way,
did
ha-
decide
a
not to
state, by
enforce
the way,
federal
that has a-
laws.
that has a
Franklin,
very strong
did the Attorney
libertarian
General
streak.
decide not to enforce the federal laws on marijuana in states that legalized it?
He decided
Had he-
that he was going to focus their
Right.
resources on
Let me
areas
ask you
where
a
they
question.
could have a greater
Had
impact.
he decided to enforce them, would that have been an encouragement or a discouragement? It would have discouraged, wouldn't it? So
Possibly.
So they
Possibly.
are encouraging marijuana use, and you know it.
One of the latest things that just happened, this came from the Washington Post, believe it or not. Would you consider the Washington Post a liberal newspaper?
I'd consider it a newspaper.
It's a liberal newspaper.
Very liberal, isn't it?
Not quite as bad as the New York Times, but probably second.
The latest Obama claim received four Pinocchios by the Washington Post fact checker. The president received 4 Pinocchios for saying 7 million Americans now have access to health care because of the Affordable Care Act.
Washington Post actually said it could be as low as 1 million and as high as maybe 2.5 million.
Yeah. And basically he was fooling around
By
with
the
some
way,
numbers that,
new report also says that Obamacare will increase the health care cost of 11 million small business workers. 2/3 of the small business workers will see an increase. Weren't we told that it would actually decrease every family by $2,500 a year?
Well, what we found is, I can't speak for the whole country, but it's certainly not the case in Tennessee.
Franklin, I'm telling you the whole country. These are reports
No,
from the CBO. They're from
I'm just saying,
the
we
latest
saw
one
that
is-
we saw the numbers. We have the
Right.
third lowest
You
health
may
care
have.
in the country.
There are some winners and losers,
Well,
but the bulk of the people
in Tennessee,
2/3
folks, has been a winner.
Franklin, 2/3 of the people are. By the way,
Tennessee has been a winner.
Here's the newest lie. Franklin, do you remember the 7 million enrollees was the goal before March 31st?
Yeah.
You remember
I've
that?
heard
I
that
love
number
that one.
thrown out.
Well, I can show you a video where Kathleen Sebelius said that in September 2013. Well, in February she said that was never our goal.
I don't know where that number
These
came
people
from.
out lie.
They called it lies. She said she didn't know where that 7
They've
million
got
came
her-
from.
here's-
and
here's
then they've got her own video.
dueling
saying-
videos
Here's what I
saying
know.
opposite thing.
Here's what I know.
Let me ask you-
We had 6
Let
Republican
me ask
governors
you a
in
question.
Washington this
What
week.
does it do-
Trying desperately to find ways to get Obamacare now implemented in their states.
Franklin,
They're
Let me
trying
ask
to
you a
do
question. What does it do for the people's trust in government when Kathleen Sebelius is shown in dueling videotapes saying one thing in September of 13 and saying the exact opposite, claiming she never said the first thing in February of 14? What does it do
John,
for people's
this
trust?
isn't even remotely
What does it do for people's
This
trust?
isn't
Will you
remotely
answer that
complicated.
question? She lied. Did she not lie?
It is not remotely
Did she lie?
complicated, John.
Did she
you
lie?
have an election coming up. If you can elect enough people who are opposed to this, you can change it.
Well, let me give you another
I don't
consequence,
think
Franklin.
you can.
I'm sorry that I am apparently some antiquated dinosaur, but if I were president of the United States and one of my cabinet secretaries out and out lied, I would call her up and I would say, "You're fired. Pack your bags and leave."
She will be the scapegoat that will be blamed at some point in time.
We used to have standards in this country.
All right, we're running a little late. Got one couple of things here we want to do. You guys just sit back and listen. You're in for a free ride here. Go ahead.
Remember what Jesus said to Peter, goats on the left, sheep on the right. And also, if you want to catch fish, do it from the right side of the boat. They did, and they filled the boat. Origin of left and right. I have often wondered why it is that conservatives are called the right and liberals are called the left. By chance, I stumbled upon this verse in the Bible. The heart of the wise inclines to the right, but the heart of the fool to the left. Ecclesiastes 10:2. Thus saith the Lord, amen. Can't get any simpler than that.
All right, one more thing. Let's have a little quick spelling lesson. The last four letters in American, I can. The last four letters in Republican, I can. The last four letters in Democrats. Bye-bye. See you next week.
You've been listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and Franklin Chansey. Catch them again on Whoop FM at noon today and every Wednesday morning from 7:30 to 8:30. Now, back to more music on Whoop FM.
You need money overnight?